All right, so you send over a pretty fascinating stack of stuff about this Overlook Hotel.
Hmm.
And let me tell you, this is not your average vacation spot. We've got excerpts from The Shining itself, plus some old newspaper articles. And things get pretty creepy pretty fast. We're talking wealth,
Yeah.
power, maybe even a touch of the mob.
Yeah.
Buckle up. This is going to be a wild ride.
Yeah. What really jumps out at me is how these sources don't just tell a story, they create an atmosphere. Like, King built this hotel in our minds before the Torrances even get there.
Exactly. And it all starts with Horace Derwent,
Mm.
the millionaire who built the place. This guy wasn't just rich. He was into everything. Planes, movies, even weapons. I mean, it makes you wonder what kind of deals were happening behind closed doors, right?
Definitely makes you think. And then there's that scrapbook, the one they found in the basement, full of all those details about the hotel's grand opening, fashion designers, celebrities, even some names that seem a little shady, like maybe hinting at some organized crime connections.
Okay. Oh, and don't forget about the sudden sale of the Overlook and all of Derwent's Colorado holdings. And the buyer, Charles Grandin, a name we'll be hearing again. You start to realize this story. It's full of twists and turns, like a maze with some pretty dark corners.
Yeah, Derwin's exit is definitely intriguing. Was he forced out? Or did he, orchestrate his own disappearance? It feels like there's a whole other story hidden beneath the surface, just waiting to be uncovered.
And speaking of hidden stories, things get even more complicated after Derwent leaves. The Overlook goes through a rough patch. Bankruptcy, a suicide. It's like a dark cloud settled over the place.
It's true, the Overlook's history. It's full of these boom and bust cycles, like periods of opulence followed by tragedy, almost as if the place itself is cursed.
Totally.
Yeah.
Then you've got high country investments. They sweep in with these plans to turn the Overlook into this super exclusive key club. They want to attract the elite, the movers and shakers. But then the rumors start swirling that Derwent might actually be pulling the strings behind the scenes, using Grandin as his front man.
And that's where these newspaper clippings get really fascinating. Remember that article about the gangland shooting at the Overlook? It named some pretty notorious figures. Vito the Shopper, Janelli, Baby Charlie, Battaglia. These aren't just your average vacationers. It makes you wonder what kind of activities were happening under the guise of this exclusive club.
Yeah, it paints a pretty chilling picture, right? This grand hotel, a playground for the rich and powerful, but also a haven for those operating in the shadows. It makes you think about the hidden worlds that exist, just beneath the surface of what we see.
Exactly. The Overlook becomes a microcosm of society itself. The glamorous facade, the whispers of corruption, the violence that lurks just beneath the surface.
And now enter the Torrances. Jackin, a writer and recovering alcoholic, he takes a job as winter caretaker, bringing his wife Wendy and their son Danny along for what they hope will be a quiet and restorative time. But little Danny has a secret. He possesses a gift, the Shining, which allows him to see and sense things that others can't. And from the moment they arrive, Danny knows something's not right at the Overlook.
Danny's Shining adds a whole other dimension to the story. It's not just some parlor trick. It's like a window into the hidden layers of the Overlook, the echoes of its past, and the potential for darkness that's woven into its very fabric.
Totally. Think about how Danny knows about that scrapbook in the basement before anyone tells him. He senses the presence of the woman in room 217. That lingering evil that just seems to permeate that space. It's like his Shining is tuned into the hotel's dark frequency.
It's almost as if the Overlook itself is sentient, aware of Danny's presence, and maybe even threatened by his ability to see through its illusions.
And then there's Jack, struggling with his sobriety, drawn to the Overlook's history. In a way that feels like more than just curious. He finds himself captivated by the stories of past guests, the whispers of scandals and betrayals.
You start to see how the Overlook preys on vulnerability, how it amplifies the darkness that already exists within a person. Jack's alcoholism, his writer's block, his underlying anger, it's all fuel for the fire.
Yeah, it's like the Overlook is whispering to him.
Yeah.
You know, feeding his obsession with its past. Remember that scene where he just blows up at Ullman, the hotel manager?
Yeah.
I mean, that's not just cabin fever. That's something deeper, darker, coming to the surface.
Absolutely. It's as if the Overlook is using Jack's own creative energy, like his need to tell stories, to weave him into its own narrative. He's becoming a character in the Overlook's tragic opera.
And poor Danny, caught in the middle of all this. His Shining isn't just showing him ghosts. It's giving him glimpses of his father's unraveling, the violence simmering beneath the surface. I mean, imagine the terror of seeing your own parent turn into a stranger, a threat.
Yeah, Danny's situation is really unsettling. He's not just witnessing the supernatural, he's experiencing the breakdown of everything safe and familiar. You know the love of a parent is supposed to be a constant, a source of comfort. But for Danny, it becomes a source of fear.
And don't forget, the Torrances are completely isolated, snowed in, no way to contact the outside world. King really ratchets up the tension with that detail, doesn't he? It creates this feeling of claustrophobia, like they're trapped in a cage with a predator.
The isolation is key. It strips away any sense of security, leaving them vulnerable to the Overlook's influence. Think about those classic horror tropes. The haunted house, the abandoned asylum. They're always places cut off from the world, where the rules of reality no longer apply.
And things just keep escalating. The topiary animals come to life. The word red rum appears. And Jack has that terrifying outburst at Wendy and Danny. It's like a pressure cooker about to explode.
And it's important to note that the Overlook doesn't just rely on spooky apparitions or psychic powers. It also exploits the very real human capacity for cruelty and violence. Jack's rage, his jealousy, his resentment, it all becomes weaponized by the hotel.
Speaking of weapons, remember that roque mallet Jack finds. It becomes this symbol of his transformation, doesn't it? It's no longer a game. It's a tool of destruction.
Absolutely. The mallet, like the Overlook itself, seems innocuous at first glance. But beneath the surface lies the potential for violence. A reminder that even the most ordinary objects can be twisted into something terrifying.
Danny knows he has to get help. He reaches out with his shining to Dick Halloran, the chef who also possesses the gift. This is a long shot, a desperate plea across miles of snowy wilderness.
Yeah. Halloran's introduction is a glimmer of hope in an increasingly dark narrative. He represents a connection to the outside world, a reminder that there's still good in the universe, even if it feels very far away.
But even reaching the Overlook is a battle for Halloran. He's facing a blizzard, mechanical breakdowns. It's like the hotel itself is trying to keep him away.
It really speaks to the Overlook's power, doesn't it? It's not just confined to the physical space of the hotel. It seems to extend its influence outward, manipulating events, creating obstacles to protect itself.
And when Halloran finally arrives, he walks straight into a nightmare. The bloody trail, the bodies. It's clear that the Overlook has won.
Halloran's death is a devastating blow. It shatters the hope he represented, reinforces the sense of isolation and despair, and it also raises the question, if the Overlook can corrupt someone like Jack, a loving husband and father, can anyone truly resist its influence?
But Halloran's arrival has an unexpected consequence. Remember how Danny was desperately trying to reach him with his shining, that connection, that psychic link. Somehow alerts Wendy to the danger. It's a subtle detail, but it reveals a lot about the nature of the shining, doesn't it?
Yeah, it suggests a level of interconnectedness that transcends the physical world, as if the shining creates this network of empathy, a way for those who possess it to sense each other's emotions, even across vast distances.
And finally, Wendy sees Jack for what he's become. A monster. The man she loves, the father of her child, is gone, replaced by something cold and calculating. It's a gut-wrenching realization, the ultimate betrayal.
It's a moment that taps into our deepest fears, the fear of losing someone we love, not to death, but to something that twists and distorts their very essence.
Wendy barricades herself and Danny in the bathroom. But Jack, fueled by the Overlook's rage, starts hacking at the door with that roque mallet. It's a scene of pure terror. A mother fighting to protect her child from the unthinkable.
It's a primal struggle for survival, a desperate attempt to hold on to hope in the face of overwhelming darkness. And in that moment, Wendy discovers a strength she never knew she possessed.
Remember how she grabs that knife? Ready to fight back. It's a powerful moment of defiance, a refusal to be a victim. But even then, she's outmatched. Jack smashes through the door, attacks Wendy. And it looks like it's all over for them.
It's a brutal reminder of the Overlook's power, its ability to manipulate and control, to turn love into hate, family into foe. But even in the darkest moments, there are glimmers of hope. Danny's quick thinking, his ability to use his shining to project an image of Halloran, buys them precious time.
Yeah, it's a clever tactic, a testament to Danny's resilience and his growing understanding of his abilities. He's learning to weaponize his shining, not just to perceive the darkness, but to fight back against it. It's a harrowing escape, though. Danny flees into the blizzard, Jack hot on his trail, and Wendy's left behind, injured and terrified, trying to find a way out of this hotel. Talk about a nightmare scenario. You've got a father-turned-monster, a mother desperately trying to reunite with her son, and this looming presence of the Overlook, orchestrating the chaos.
Yeah, it's a brilliant use of parallel narratives. Each storyline just heightens the tension of the others. We're on the edge of our seats wondering if anyone will make it out of this alive. And remember, this isn't just a physical chase. It's a battle for Danny's soul. The Overlook wants to claim him, to add his shining to its collection of corrupted powers.
And it's interesting how King uses the setting to mirror the character's emotional states right. You've got Danny lost in the blinding snowstorm, like a physical manifestation of his fear and confusion. And then Wendy's trapped inside this labyrinthine hotel, reflecting her own feelings of being lost and hunted.
Right. The Overlook itself becomes a character in this final act. Its twisting corridors, its echoing emptiness, its oppressive atmosphere. They all contribute to the sense of dread and inevitability. It's a space that seems designed to crush the human spirit.
It's like the Overlook is feeding off the chaos, growing stronger with each act of violence and despair. But remember Halloran, he's not giving up. He regains consciousness, injured but determined to save Danny and Wendy. Talk about resilience.
Yeah, Halloran embodies the power of human connection, the refusal to abandon hope. Even in the face of unimaginable darkness, he represents the possibility of redemption, the idea that even the most corrupted soul can find a path back to the light.
And he's the one who finds Wendy right. They team up, this unlikely duo, searching for Danny in the heart of the storm.
Their reunion is a powerful moment. It shows that even in the most desperate circumstances, human bonds can endure. It's a reminder that we're not meant to face our demons alone.
But of course, the Overlook isn't going to make it easy for them. The climax takes place in the boiler room, this industrial space, filled with pipes and machinery, like a fitting symbol for the Overlook's dark heart. And there's Jack, waiting for Danny, his eyes burning with the Overlook's rage.
Yeah, the setting of the boiler room is significant. It represents the raw, primal energy that fuels the Overlook, the source of its power, and its destructive potential. It's a place where life and death hang in the balance, a crucible where the characters' fates will be forged.
It's like a scene out of Dante's Inferno. You can almost feel the heat, smell the sulfur, sense the presence of something ancient and malevolent.
Yeah.
And it's here, in this infernal setting. Vanek confronts his father. But he doesn't fight back with violence. He fights back with love.
And that's the key to understanding Danny's shining. It's not just a weapon, it's a conduit for empathy, a way to tap into the deepest emotions of others. And in that moment, Danny manages to reach through the Overlook's grip, to connect with the flicker of the real Jack Torrance, the father who loves him.
It's such a powerful moment, right? It shows that even when someone seems completely lost to darkness, there's always a chance for redemption, a possibility for love to break through. And it's that flicker of humanity that saves them all. Jack, in a moment of self-sacrifice, overloads the boiler, destroying the Overlook in a spectacular explosion. Talk about going out with a bang.
It is a cathartic ending. You overlook this symbol of corruption and evil. It's consumed by its own destructive power. But it comes at a cost. Jack Torrance, trapped inside the inferno, becomes another victim of the hotel's insatiable hunger.
It's a bittersweet victory. Danny and Wendy escape with Halloran, physically scarred but alive. They've survived the Overlook's onslaught, but they'll carry the trauma of their experience with them forever. It makes you think about the enduring power of the human spirit, our capacity to overcome even the most horrifying ordeals.
And what about Danny's shining? It saved their lives, but it also exposed them to unimaginable horrors. It's a gift that comes with a heavy price. Makes you wonder if some abilities are simply too powerful, too dangerous to wield, even with the best intentions.
So what does this deep dive into the shining tell us? Well, it's a reminder that darkness can lurk in the most unexpected places, that even the most idyllic settings can conceal unspeakable evil. But it's also a testament to the power of love, courage, and the enduring bonds of family. It's a story that chills us to the bone, but also reminds us of the strength that lies within the human heart.
The Shining is a masterpiece of horror, because it doesn't just rely on jump scares or supernatural thrills. It explores the darkness that exists within us all, the potential for violence and corruption. That lies beneath the surface of even the most ordinary lives. And it leaves us with some unsettling questions about the nature of good and evil, the limits of human endurance, and the price we pay for our deepest desires.
It's a story that stays with you long after you finish reading it. A reminder that sometimes the most terrifying monsters are the ones we create ourselves. And that's the true horror of The Shining. The realization that the line between sanity and madness, between love and hate, is thinner than we'd like to believe. So the next time you find yourself in a secluded mountain resort, maybe think twice before accepting a job as winter caretaker. You never know what might be lurking in the shadows.